All right, so I wanted to cover this specific case because, oh my gosh, well, number one, it happened so long ago, and it's truly one of the very few cases that I'm still to this day confused about. I don't know how Kathleen died. And I've watched all of the documentaries. I've watched the Netflix series. I've done it all. And I think HBO even had a series where they played both sides. So either way, if you thought of the owl theory, if you thought it was the actual staircase and he unalived her or whatever, they did both. So that was a really interesting, because in your head, as you watch this stuff on Netflix or whatever as a documentary, you just kind of play in your head of, okay, well, is this how it happened? And then you have the crime scene photos, but then to see it played out and acted out is really crazy. But I figured we'll cover this. This is a 22-minute video, and I can't even think of his name. We're gonna find out. Let's watch.
There's one mystery millions of armchair detectives around the world are right now trying to solve. Just how did Kathleen Peterson end up dead at the bottom of the staircase in her family home? Did the 48-year-old fall? Was she beaten to death? Or bizarrely, is an owl to blame?
Okay, so I forgot. There's actually 3 theories. So in the comments, put what theory you believe. Did she fall down the staircase after drinking and Xanax, whatever? Did he push her down and unalive her? Or was she out in the front yard doing something with the Christmas lights and an owl got her, flew on her? Put what you think in the comments.
The case has attracted so much interest, it's been the subject of an award-winning documentary, as well as a recently released drama series. Tonight, Kathleen's husband, Michael Peterson, speaks. He's the novelist who was convicted of his wife's murder, sentenced to life in jail without parole, and then, intriguingly, unexpectedly released. At 78, Michael Peterson is a man who seems quiet and unassuming.
The Durham novelist was convicted in 2003 of killing his wife, Kathleen.
Kathleen was found dead in a back staircase in their Durham mansion.
But for the past 2 decades, this accomplished novelist has led a life stranger than any fiction he might write.
Some people even say he's a good fictional writer. He is a person who knows how to create a fictional plot.
It began with the violent death of his wife, Kathleen, in 2001. Her bloodied body was found at the bottom of their staircase, and despite his denials, he was accused of beating her to death.
Kathleen Peterson was murdered. She was brutally beaten by this man right here.
There's no evidence. There was no reason for me to kill her. There was no weapon. There was nothing.
The injuries found on this body are...
I do have to say that I adored his defense team.
Not consistent with a fall down the stairs.
What followed was a contentious trial, each step recorded by a documentary team that remarkably followed the case for the next 18 years.
What happened in that stairway was a tragic accident.
A global audience given a front row seat to judge the man they watch on the screen. It's almost like taking tickets. Oh, he did it, he didn't do it, he did it. Did you expect that aspect of it?
No. I did not trust the judicial system in Durham or the police for that matter in particular. And I wanted it documented completely. And I really did not give any thought to the fact that, hundreds and now millions of people will see this and judge me.
And now, much to Michael's dismay, his case has been turned into entertainment, a Hollywood drama starring Colin Firth and Toni Collette.
I will forever be Colin Firth. Could be worse, but I'm not real happy about it.
A lot of people think he actually does a very sympathetic portrayal of you.
I have no idea. If by sympathetic you mean he has my voice and mannerisms, that's fine.
We're not perfect, God knows, but...
He did so freaking good at this role. It was insane. It was insane. And the woman who played Kathleen, I feel like truly, if I were to imagine what Kathleen were to sound and her mannerisms were like, she nailed it. This was such a good show. I think it's on HBO. I'm sure they'll tell us.
We stick together.
I don't think the problem is with Colin, but I think it's with the scriptwriters.
Durham 911, where's your emergency? 1810 Cedar Street, please. What's wrong? My wife's had an accident. She's still breathing.
The 9th of December, 2001, 2:40 a.m. Michael Peterson makes a desperate call for help.
What kind of accident? Still down the stairs. She's still breathing. Please come. Is she conscious? What? Is she conscious? No, she's not conscious.
He's just come in from the backyard to find Kathleen unconscious and covered in blood at the bottom of their staircase.
Get somebody here right away, please. Okay, somebody's dispatching the ambulance while I ask you questions. It's in Forest Hills, okay? Please, please.
Oh, God, I just was awful. Awful.
People have raised the question of how you automatically assumed this was an accident, and that's what you said in your 911 call, that Kathleen had had an accident, despite the amount of blood. Why wouldn't you assume that somebody had beaten Kathleen in that moment?
No, a fair question, but I wasn't focusing on the blood. I was focusing on Kathleen lying there, picking her up, holding her, watching her die, and her breathing just fade and fade away.
But for police who were on the scene, the amount of blood pointed to a homicide. And very quickly, Michael was their target. Did you ever imagine that you would be considered a suspect?
No, it never entered my mind. There was no reason. We got along great. It was a wonderful marriage. There would be no reason for...
That, to me, honestly, is the biggest red flag. And I think that's, I mean, like I said in the beginning, this is one of the very few cases that I don't truly know. But with his whole internet history and the motive that the prosecution came up with, that's more of the way that I'm leaning towards, is that he did unalive her. But his defense team is so good that during the documentary, I was just kind of like, oh my God, that is, I guess that could happen. And that's reasonable doubt.
For me to kill her.
Did you ever doubt your dad's innocence?
No, I didn't. There was never a moment which it would have made sense for my dad to have been guilty.
The death of their mother, Kathleen, and the accusation of murder made against their father.
Also, they were a blended family. I know they were a blended family, and then they shared, I think this girl here was Kathleen's daughter in a previous marriage. I don't know. And then the boys were his in a previous marriage. And then these two were, I don't know. I'm sure they will explain it, but I know it's like kind of like a Brady Bunch situation.
Tore the Peterson family apart. for adopted daughter Margie Blakemore, a filmmaker who has just released her own documentary on real people behind true crime, the fictionalisation of her very personal tragedy has reopened old wounds.
The trauma runs so deep in myself and my family that I can't even look at the billboards without shaking. I can't relive that. I really can't, and I cannot watch actors playing my family.
For people who watch The Staircase, it's an extraordinary, thrilling ride, but it's your life, isn't it?
Yes. I understand why people are interested in the story. There are a lot of twists and turns.
Those twists and turns played out in court nearly 20 years ago. First up, having discovered pornography on his computer, the revelation by a disgusted prosecutor, Michael was bisexual.
You saw the rest of
By the way, this prosecutor passed away shortly. I think it was shortly after this trial.
things on his computer. Once again, these things are so filthy we can't even show them on TV. Filth. Pure T filth.
Frida Black was very keen to call it filth.
Pure T filth. One of the classic moments of the trial. I'll never forget that. But today, it would make you couldn't do it. It would be shut down, mistrial, for bringing that kind of stuff up.
Even more prejudicial was the biggest bombshell moment at trial, the exhumation of Liz Ratliff, a close friend of the Petersons who had also been found dead at the bottom of a staircase some 18 years earlier.
It was all...
This was another thing, like 2 wives, 2 that have passed away, and the surrounding main thing is a staircase.
Totally circumstantial. And as everybody knows, when you want to convict somebody, you just throw mud. Something's going to stick. And so they did.
Liz Ratliff was Margie's birth mum. The Petersons adopted Margie and her sister Martha when their mother's death in Germany in 1985 left them orphaned. Michael was the last to see Liz alive, and at the time, the death was ruled natural, the result of a brain hemorrhage. But at his trial, her cause of death was revised to homicide. When it was revealed to the jury that your birth...
I think that they excavated, I hope that's the correct term, exhumed his first wife's body. I'm pretty sure they did.
Birth mother had been found dead at the bottom of the stairs. Do you think that was just too much? Too much for them? A coincidence that convinced them that your dad was guilty?
They didn't actually show the part of my mom's brain that had a brain hemorrhage, which is why she died. So there was just this immense frustration I felt that the science wasn't actually being shown in trial. Just mind-boggling to me.
On re-examining the case, the German authorities denied Liz was murdered.
So all of this is out there now. Oh my God, he killed 2 women, the international staircase killer. But no, her death was never described as anything other than natural.
The damage had been done.
Oh yeah, right. Again, you know the whole story. You can't unring the bell.
My opinion is that this is the scene of a beating. The back of the head was struck 3 times.
The prosecution's star witness was Dwayne Deaver from the Special Bureau of Investigation. It was his blood spatter analysis which they claimed proved Michael had beaten Kathleen to death. analysis Michael's team dismissed as junk science.
What you were trying to do was to get a particular result.
What I was trying to do was to see if that action was consistent with what I thought had produced that stain.
You were trying to get a particular result.
Well, if you believe that, then you just got to believe that Dwayne Deaver is just a liar. And he has no reason in the world to come up here and lie to you.
But with no murder weapon and no skull fractures, Michael was confident Deaver's conclusion of a fatal beating would be thrown out.
It's so stupid. It's so wrong. Nobody could believe this. But the jury, they're just rapt, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. I just couldn't believe what was going on.
Shocked and distraught, the Peterson family listened to the verdict.
State of North Carolina versus Michael Alford Peterson. We, the 12 members of the jury, unanimously find the defendant to be guilty of first-degree murder.
All right, then, Mr. Peterson, if you'll stand, is there anything you want to say before the court imposes judgment?
I'd like to say,
The last thing he said to us before, they put him in handcuffs and they allowed him to turn around to look at his kids, and he looked at each one of us and said, "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay." It was very hard.
Florida homeowners, did you know that right now you can get a brand new AC unit for your home at no cost to you?
Michael was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But then, 8 years in, his conviction was overturned.
Dwayne Deaver deliberately and intentionally misled this court.
The prosecutor's so-called star witness, Dwayne Deaver, was shown to be a serial liar who falsified his credentials, botched dozens of other trials, and was fired.
The transcript was bad enough, but when you have the film of him lying and just with this absolute supercilious, arrogant manner, and the judge being taken in by all of that, and so when he saw that, he overturned my conviction.
Convicted killer Mike Peterson is getting
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that has to happen when something like that happens. I think that's kind of what happened in, that'll be a different day.
a new trial.
With a new trial to be set, Michael's guilt or innocence was yet to be decided. But then an extraordinary twist, a theory no one saw coming, proposing what really happened to Kathleen Peterson that night.
The more I got involved with it, the more interested I became. I was like a bird dog, and I had a hot scent, and I was following it through.
Oh, this is the guy that created the owl theory. He's going to sound super crazy at first.
First chronicled by a French documentary team and now immortalised by Hollywood, the staircase continues to leave armchair detectives guessing. In 2001, Kathleen Peterson was found at the bottom of her stairs, covered in blood. Did she fall? Was she attacked by an intruder? Or did her husband, Michael Peterson, beat her to death as he was convicted, despite his long-standing denial? Can you understand why the police believed she had been beaten to death and that Michael was responsible for it?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I cannot blame them for coming to that conclusion. The only thing is that was the wrong conclusion in my mind. It was what we call a rushed. This is the corner of that Peterson property.
A former special prosecutor, attorney Larry Pollard, was the Petersons' neighbour at the time of Kathleen's death. Very early on, he felt the police case against Michael was suspect.
In my gut, I didn't feel that that was a murder. I felt like there was something else that came about. I was interested in finding the truth and finding justice.
Larry's search for truth has resulted in a conclusion no one could have anticipated. Kathleen did not die at the hands of Michael, nor any man for that matter.
If you know nothing about this case, I'm going to let you know your mind is about to be blown. Because the first time this theory was brought in, I was like, there's absolutely no fucking way. But give him a chance.
As far-fetched as it may sound, Larry believes Kathleen was attacked by an owl.
I started looking into it because we have owls in the neighborhood, and the wounds that I was shown leads me to think something else happened. And I really came to the conclusion this was an attack by a wild bird of prey outside, I repeat, outside of her residence.
According to her autopsy report, there were no skull fractures, but Kathleen did have 8 lacerations to the back of her head, which was so deep they caused her to bleed to death.
1, 2, 3, like that, there.
Larry believes the owl's talons match Kathleen's head wounds, and he thinks she was attacked during a late-night mission to put a Christmas decoration out on the lawn.
In my opinion, she was hit, the bird hit, realized it had made a mistake, and it went flying away into the night. And
Okay, one of the reasons why I have a problem with this is, how would he know that she was on a late night mission to, this is just, he's speculating, okay? And I think he gets to the point where she gets attacked in the back of the head. The owl flies away. She tries to get up the stairs, and she's been drinking, and I think there's medication in her system, and she falls backwards. And then Michael comes in and finds her. I think that's what it is. I haven't seen this in a really long time. But like my sister and I and my brother as well used to just like compare like what we thought about the case. And it's kind of crazy too how your opinion on things change over time.
Kathleen, by that time, had been smacked, and the talons had gone all the way down to the skull bone, but did not crack the skull. Key point. Now, she's taken off, she's bleeding. There she drops 2 drops of blood on the way in and 1 on the landing. She goes inside, and there, as the door is closed, there's a handprint on that back side of the door. And that handprint is coming because she's slamming that door.
Larry speculates, once inside, Kathleen either slipped or fainted on the stairs, the enormous amount of blood coming from the 8 gashes to her scalp.
I brought this to the attention of the authorities right from the very beginning, but they didn't want to hear it. And they thought I was nuts. No, I was doing something what I think I was sworn to do as an attorney.
I will have to say that since the Karen Reed trial and the John O'Keefe case and all of that, I never was one to be like, I'd always just be like straight facts, but let's just say that I keep an open mind now to every single case. Lay it all out, and then I want to also know like the little corners of hidden things too.
As a special prosecutor, as a neighbor, as a Christian, and I was hot on the trail. I was like a bird dog, literally, except I was hunting for owls.
For all those people who think that you are nuts and that this is a ludicrous theory, owls have attacked before, right?
She thinks he's nuts. 1000%. This reminds me of like whenever I try to talk about the one time that a literal UFO, I can't even talk about it because you guys are going to think I'm crazy. And whenever I tell people, there's no point to even tell them. They're just going to think you're crazy because it's just so outlandish. But you never know. You never know. I've never seen one since, and that was in 2010.
There is evidence of owls attacking people in this manner.
Oh, I have lots of references and of owls attacking people. I have ornithologists who are bird specialists will write articles about the fact that they're getting hit all the time.
But the most compelling finding, pointing to Larry's theory, is what he calls the smoking feather.
This is a picture of the feathers that were recovered. This is a picture of blood droplets, and they are attached to the victim's hair shaft.
Microscopic feather fragments wrapped around Kathleen's hair, found in Kathleen's hand by the medical examiner, but never followed up.
And it does say slide 3832 hair consistent with that of the victim. Anagen, meaning yanked out by the root ball. Straw, meaning the color. Bloody feather, in the English language, feather.
What do you think of that theory?
I tell you what, it's a lot more plausible that they all did it than I did it. But I don't know. Again, I don't want to go back there. It would be, too painful and get me nowhere.
I want to thank all the people who have supported me from all over the world. It's impossible for me to express my gratitude.
Michael's conviction was overturned in 2011 and a new trial was ordered. But justice moved slowly, and instead, in 2017, Michael was offered a plea deal.
So he was offered an Alford plea, which is, they're going to explain, I'm pretty sure, I just continually keep saying, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure, they're going to explain. It's where you admit guilt without admitting guilt, in some sense. But basically, with time served, he's going to be able to walk away, or he got to walk away.
Fearful of not getting a fair trial, he chose to accept what's called an Alford plea, which required him to admit to voluntary manslaughter without having to say he'd killed Kathleen.
Do you now personally plead guilty pursuant to the Alford case?
Yes, sir. In which you say, okay, there's enough evidence here to convict me, but I'm innocent. And I always said that. I will never, ever, ever say I am guilty. I couldn't go, I was, 73 at the time, and my children had gone through the hell. I had a grandchild by this time. And I said, no, just end it right now. It was not, and I said, don't come. Do not come to this hearing. Just let it end. And so it was a very sad day for me to, finally be released for time served, 8 years.
Given that you did take the plea, do you think most people believe you're innocent or guilty?
You've been accused of plagiarizing your master's thesis. If you tell the truth, you can have this bucket of...
I don't care. I mean, if you reach a certain age, 78, you don't really give a damn about what people think. They're not going to change their minds. It has no effect on me.
Michael Peterson. The words Alford plea, they're meaningless. Alford Schmalford means nothing. Guilt.
I'll never forget that. Alford Schmalford.
The plea deal outraged Michael's sister-in-law and Kathleen's daughter from her first marriage.
All I want right now is to just, focus on the memory of my mother. The man who murdered her is walking free.
Kathleen's first daughter, or I guess only daughter, ended up turning against all the other siblings and believed he unalived her mom. So
the people who think you're guilty are some of the people who know you the longest, the best. Kathleen's daughter, Kathleen's sisters, your own sister. They believe you're guilty.
So the police got to them and convinced them that I had killed their mother, their sister. So, okay, I understand that. No animosity. There's no point in that.
Sadness? I mean, the daughter that you raised as your own thinks you're a murderer. That doesn't make you sad or hurt you?
Well, there's this part where sometimes you just cut things off. But the anger and the feeling of hurt and the resentment, that's all gone.
The fact of the matter is she had some wine and fell.
The HBO version of The Staircase, streamed to millions around the world, exposes Michael once again to the running commentary of did he or didn't he kill Kathleen. It's not something he can stop. All he can control is the remote, and vows he'll never see it.
I was there when Kathleen died, and that was awful. And from what I understand about the HBO show, she dies 3 times. They're very graphic and very violent. I certainly don't want to watch 3 renditions of that. It's been 20 years since she died. I mean, I was at the cemetery. I go at the cemetery a lot.
So one of the things that's not covered in this, which they can't cover everything in 22 minutes and 34 seconds, he was having affairs with men. And he claims that Kathleen knew, but how they played out in the HBO series is that like she went through his email and found out, and like it was later that night that she was killed. So
just to look and talk to her and just say something, knowing she's not there. God knows I'm not a believer in that kind of nonsense. But it's sort of a comfort to think about her because there were some wonderful times. And I try not to let the bad times, her death being the worst or me going to prison for that. I don't want to think about that. I'll think of the good times we had.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown.
Has anybody watched a body language expert on Michael Peterson? That's something that I'm going to look into. But that's all for this. If anybody, I want to know everybody's thoughts on like what theory do you believe? Everything. And then if I get a decent response, then maybe I will actually like do some longer videos on this case. We're just going to throw in some mud and seeing what sticks. See you in the next one.